My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine Cristani from Willow Healing Matters, and today I am here with Jason Ott. So he's an author and the owner of Empowered Prevention, and he works as a herbalist as well as a health consultant. He can see his clients in a clinical setting working with all forms of medical doctors to find a path that fits their individual needs and makes progress with their health. This includes mind, body, and spiritual health, since all three of these are vital for someone in order to heal from chronic illnesses and pain. He is author of the book, No Cure, No Problem. So a big welcome to the show, Jason, and I'm so delighted to have you.
Thank you for having me. I am too. I'm excited to have a little conversation about all of this and even learn a little bit more about, your country and where you're from and the health there.
Yeah,
Because,
the health there. It's pretty close to America because we follow very much the American model. So I'm from just south of Sydney in Australia, and yeah, I don't even use the traditional healthcare system, if you will.
yeah,
I kind of remember the last time I went to the doctor. I think it was because I had shingles and I needed an antiviral. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to work. Apart from that, and that was probably 5 years ago. Apart from that, I don't go to the doctor.
I didn't realize it was very similar there as far as like the chronic disease epidemics and what we got going on.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that we do have something called Medicare, which allows you to go see a doctor like for free, or it allows you a certain amount of healthcare for free, but it does not really support alternative health. It does not support, and my whole life well, not my whole life, but since I've started my alternative journey, I've just accepted that I need to pay for quality healthcare, which includes traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, herbs, chiropractor,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And I just accepted that.
That's
Yeah.
very similar this on this end is like it became a lot easier when I accepted that I was going to need to pay rather than be mad when I couldn't get what I wanted or something. So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I've had a lot of guests on the show who we always end up talking about either mental health a mental health model or the medical model. And it's not that I'm discouraging doctors or things like that. They're just doing what they're taught. And I understand that. And, if I broke an arm, I would definitely have to go to the doctor. I don't think I can wrap it up. I will take comfrey, but I don't think I can wrap it up and make it
Yeah,
work. So tell us a bit about you, Jason. So how did you get into your journey of who you are today?
I think it's going to be a layered answer to your question as far as how I got here. It did start when I was a kid. I think my initial interest in health was brought forward because my mom was, but then she got brain cancer when she was young and she's an identical twin. So after that, then it wasn't necessarily, I could easily say that I wasn't interested in healthcare as much as I was scared of getting sick like my mom, right? So it became a very top of mind thing and focus in my life of like taking care of yourself. And that's what got me into it. What eventually transpired was my mom didn't die from cancer. My mom's twin, identical twins, never had cancer to this date. But it took 8, 9 years before going through the medical model that we got to go to a Mayo Clinic here in America up in Minnesota. And they were the first place that told us that the issues your mom's having with her health is not a medical issue. It's an issue of lifestyle. You need physical therapists. You need to build muscle back, bone mass, nutrition. And we spent about 8 or 9 years figuring that out. And I was in high school at this time. And that's when I chose to go into a career in like exercise science, personal training, corrective exercise, because I was just shocked that this didn't come up earlier in us
Mm,
uncovering these things. But that's when I knew I wanted to work in this field with people in similar situations.
Yeah, and I think anyone you talk to will have some sort of story like this, right? I know I've got multiple
Hmm.
stories like this where I went to the doctor for advice and walked away going, that doesn't help me at all. Or, that doesn't address my problem at all. And, coming back to that circle of, I love that then you're like, well, I'm going to do something about it. And I don't want to, see other people in the same boat. And then you ended up going down this path to become this health consultant so that you can inspire others and show them that there's not only one way, right?
Yes, yes, and I think that leads to the second part of the question, which I did that, went to school, got into the career, was helping people, and then I started to have high blood pressure. I had digestive issues on and off throughout my life, but that eventually got diagnosed as colitis. So I found myself thinking I went to school to learn the right things, and I guess to some degree I did. It helped people with a certain why, but it also was like a half truth. There's a big part
Mm.
of it that, well, I had to go back to school for because it was not shared in that original education. So it was like after that, then when I got diagnosed, it was like, all right, well, I got to go figure this out. I didn't have health insurance and cash wise, I didn't have much cash either. So at 25, 26, it's like, I got to try to do whatever I can because I had a little, that's when my first child was born. As you know, being a mom,
Yep.
it's like there's a lot of things going on. So what started
Mhm.
as me just trying to buy time to get health insurance turned into me staying this course and learning how powerful herbs and a diet change can be for somebody and has kind of birthed this career. So it's like, it's been a lifelong experience to get to this point.
Exactly. And I love what you said. You went to school, but you didn't learn everything. And I can so relate. So my background's in allied health as a speech language
Oh,
pathologist. And I had in my 4-year degree 2 hours on autism spectrum disorder. And then the first job I got, Jason, my whole like I had two first jobs because I had two part-time positions. One of them my whole caseload was children with autism spectrum disorder, and I had no one to talk
oh
to,
my
no one to support
gosh.
me. So I went back and I educated myself, and I'm like, no, I'm going to be curious. And I remember going to this this talk and I asked them, I said, hey, do you think diet has any impact on these children with autism? And she goes, no, absolutely. There's no proof on that. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I walked away and I went, that doesn't feel right because and I guess, how do you test for that? Because everyone has a unique makeup,
Right.
right? So how can you say diet doesn't help? Because if it's a specialized diet, and I don't believe, like I had a handful of clients that the gluten-free diet worked really well because they were really triggered by the gluten and their gut was irritated and it caused lots of behavioral issues. But then I had a handful that they were better off dairy. And then I had a handful that were better if they just cut out all the artificial things. Actually, I will say everyone's better when you cut out all the artificial colors and preservatives, right? Um, but at the same time, it's not a one size fit all. And I think that's what's the part that's missing with the education that you get is that they try and give you a blanket approach. But if you're not curious enough to go back and say, well, what else, then you get really limited in your practice.
Right, right. And I think that was probably the biggest challenge when I decided to write the book was because I did not want to make it another diet book with specific parameters and protocols. It's like, because working in the field, as you just explained, that's not how it works in day to day life. Everyone is
Mm.
so different. And you might be able to find some things that benefited you from removing gluten, but it will not just solve it all. So it's like diving into the weeds and trying to think through that.
And I love that you started experimenting with herbs because a lot of people will run away from it. It amazes me. It amazes me how many people will happily take some prescription from the doctor, which doesn't work. And then I say, hey, try this herb. And they're like, I'll just see how this goes. And I'm like, this has zero side
Right.
effects. Why wouldn't you just try it? You know?
I know.
It amazes me. It amazes me. And the day this happened, so I had a client and he has ADHD and he was just bouncing off the walls and they were trialing him on all this different medication, all the antipsychotics and everything. And I'm just there cringing because he was already epileptic and
Oh,
had
wow.
epilepsy medication. So I could feel, because I'm intuitive, I could feel his liver was already not okay. So I'm like, I have a, 5, 6-year-old client here. His liver's already distressed, which is concerning. And now you're trialing him on all these drugs. And he had reactions to them and they go, oh no, it can't be from that. And anyway, and I just said, there's been all these studies done on Korean ginseng and it helps children with ADHD. Maybe you could try it. And they go, and I'll keep it in mind, but I'll just go see. And then that day I got home and I was like, that was the weirdest thing ever. Like, why wouldn't you just give it a
Right.
go? And I got home and this meme popped up and it said, happy to take a prescription with a list of side effects, but suggest a herb and all of a sudden you become the biggest skeptic. And I
I
was
know.
like, yes, I thought it was the perfect summary.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I don't even know if that's come from just one place. It seems like it's been a generational build and changes, but it is wild how quickly someone will do something that has very serious side effects, organ failure, and not even consider any sort of life change, nutrition change, or anything else that is like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to work. Like that's what led me that direction. It was like, if I don't have insurance, I found people reversing conditions. I studied their progress and their process and then went through it and said, what's the worst that happens? I get on the medications a year, 2 years from now for my colitis. I mean, I don't get it either.
Yeah. And even knowing a bit about colitis, I haven't had it personally, but I know the energy behind it and things like that. It's so often that the medication actually irritates it more, or you end up with other side effects which are worse than the original thing. And I guess it's just finding that balance and what's right for you. Like if you are on medication, you're listening to this, we're not telling you to throw it away because that can be very detrimental to your system in the thing in the first place, but maybe be curious about looking into something else for your health so that maybe long term you can get off the medication and then the cure no problem, but you never know, right? Like I have interviewed amazing people with incurable diseases and they're fine now, so it's we're here to give you hope.
Yeah.
I feel more than
I
anything.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree because it's like, and I think I tried to educate in the book of like what is pharmaceutical meds used for, and even from
Mm.
professors of pharmacology and some of the, I would say, well, all the doctors, whether they're fully Western or not, the ones I have relationships with are like, hey, in medical school, they never told us to put people on meds for 20, 30, 40 years. They were acute situations, and that's why they're
Mm.
designed. And so I think there's a big misunderstanding that we're using things for chronic treatment of something that should be only acute. So it's like using it correctly and using herbs right next to it correctly.
Mm.
That's where the
Mm.
synergy is. That's where the power is to actually see some change in your health.
Exactly. Well said, Jason, 100%. And, it's also taking your power back from depending on someone else to dictate your health as well. And I find that that's such an important piece is that you have to have that empowerment in yourself to start to question. And, I've met a lot of people and the reason they've gone on their journeys because they went, I don't want to stay like this forever, or I don't want to stay on this medication long term. I want to figure out what's going on underneath so I don't have to do this anymore.
Right, right. Because either way, it's going to be hard, right? So it's
Mhm.
like at least you having a say in the matter and you choosing parts of what's going to be hard. It's way better
Yeah.
that way.
And what can people expect, Jason, when they pick up your book? What, apart from you discussing like long-term impacts of, I'm assuming long-term impacts of pharmaceutical drugs, and that they're meant to be used acutely, but yeah.
Yeah. So this book was spawned from, yes, my situation in life, but more so giving a frame of thought. And the frame of thought is based around like if you were to ask me, hey, Jason, do you think this is healthy? My first thought is I got to know the biology of the individual. I don't know. You can't just blanket statement something as healthy because it's not healthy for everyone, right? So
Mhm.
that was the challenge. So what I tried to do was create an outline of the things we know without a doubt that every human's body needs, our mental health. So mind, body, and spirit, we're all three.
Yeah.
But then I tried to include a testimony of someone who healed and has went into full remission that mirrors that principle or what I'm educating on and why. So I'm trying to connect that dot because I think too many people know that sickness can be created and everyone is looking forward to, well, when am I going to get something? but no one has dialogue about getting healthier. And especially with like, what does that look like? Like people just don't do it. So I wanted to lay out the process of like all of these people in the testimonies, they went into remission and they followed these principles and they addressed themselves as mind, body, and spirit. So I'm trying to give a framework of thought for
Yeah.
anyone, anywhere, and then they can go in their
Yeah.
city and community and find the professionals they need or hire someone online or whatever it is. But opening that door up of like, it can be used together. Because in America, it's very either or. I don't know how it is in Australia, but it's like, I can't take that herb if I take this med. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
going to make that medication work
Same.
better. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no contraindication here. So it's like
Mm.
that's was the main goal with that book was like to frame up someone's mind to let them know of like all the other options they have, not just that one.
Yeah, and I love this, Jason, because I was out with my dad for dinner last night, and he lost a lot of weight. And my dad is like that extreme dieter, like he'll drop it really quickly because he's not meant to have that extra weight on. And his blood pressure dropped quite quickly with it too, like it got quite low. And he's like, "Oh, so I have to back off the dieting thing." And I was like, "You know, there's a herb we can give you to help rebalance that." And he just kind of dismissed me, but I was like, "I'm just gonna leave it there." But I know because I planted that seed and he knows that I've worked with herbs and things, that he'll come back to me when he's ready and he'll go, "Hey, can you make me a tea blend or can you make me some sort of herb blend?" And then he'll come back to me. But it's all about, I guess, making people curious about it too, right? So you just plant those seeds. And I feel sometimes that's the best thing we can do, because if you try and push your agenda, you're fighting a whole belief system that is really hard to unpack sometimes, especially when it's, like you said, multi-generational.
Yes, agree, agree. I think that took a while for me to learn that you just got to plant the seed and then move on. Especially if you care for people, you just know what they can feel like. And when you're talking about your dad, that's your family. So you're like, man, I know you could feel so much better if you just listen. But no, I agree 100% that I took the role of education instead, was like, do with it what the information that I'm giving you. But otherwise, your life is your life. You got to make the choices.
100%. You have to make the choice and you have to be the change in your life that you want to see. Like you can't expect someone else to come and handhold you your whole life and tell you what you can and can't do when it comes to your health.
Right, right. Yeah, you got advocate. You got to learn to advocate for yourself. And there's a big problem in that, I think, across many areas of life is like advocating and feeling
Mm.
worth it. Like as you get to the mental health, that you can have it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I shared that example earlier of like, "Hey, just try this herb." And it's like, "Huh." And then it was funny because then a couple weeks later, I had the same discussion with another client, but he was going to an acupuncturist who did traditional Chinese medicine, so had herbs. And I said, "Why don't you ask?" "Oh, no, I can't do that." I'm like, "Why? You're there anyway. Why don't you just have a conversation?" You know, it's just like, just ask, and I think that's such an important thing, and I love how you structured your book in that, you know, people can see what happens when people do choose to empower themselves and choose a way to honor their body and honor themselves so that they can get to this point of no cure, no problem, and then also allow themselves to stay in that as well, because sometimes we like to default to the old habits. You know, once you get your health recovered, it's so easy to default back to where you were before.
Agree, agree. And I think that's, as you know, that's what's even missing with our system so separated is like, that's why we have to include mental and spiritual health so we can recognize that. And so we don't repeat old patterns that got us into a hole to begin with, and start to unpack those types of things. That's where the true long term change comes from. So it's like part of what I try to lay out in the book is like the 8 healing principles. And those 8 principles came from people that went into remission. And it's when someone looks at you and says, "Oh, I don't want to change maybe my sleep routine, or I don't want to change my nutrition, or it's too hard to drink water." I try to like fast forward and be like, okay, if you remain sick, it's going to be way harder over 1, 2, 5,
Mm,
10 years. And you're going to still have to do things you don't want to do. In this case, there's hope that eventually you won't have to do things that you don't want to do if you decide to make this change. But I can tell you, you will still do all those things if you don't want to make any other changes and just say, Med, I'm going to keep drinking and eating pizza every day. Like,
Mm.
type deal.
Yeah, it's easier. Exactly. Exactly. And I guess it's like, how much sometimes it comes down to self-worth too, right? Like how much do you respect your body that, you want this body to carry you on? Why are you going to keep treating it not like a temple?
Mhm.
Why are you going to keep treating it like a garbage disposal unit? Think about what you put in your body and the impact that has on you. And, for some of my clients, even my coaching clients who know better, I say, why don't you just keep a journal? Just give it yourself an energy rating each day,
Mm.
and list down what you eat. If you're having a day where you eat really healthy food or healthy food that is healthy for your body. I want to put
Yeah.
that premise in there, you know, you know, because, like I'm not going to go eat kiwi fruit because I'm allergic to it,
Right.
right? Right. So you're going to eat food that's right for your body. And then at the end of the day, have a look and just see, you know, okay, how did I feel overall at the end of that day? And then compare it to a day that you don't eat like that and you're not honoring your body, you're not exercising, you're going in the sunlight, not going outside, whatever it might be, and just see the impact that that has on your day to day life and how you felt and how much you got done and how much you achieved. And then a lot of them do it for a week and they're like, oh. I was like, yeah, exactly. If you don't have the energy to actually show up in your life, how are you going to get anything done that you want to do on a bigger scale, especially if you want to, create something new or be a change you want to see in the world, whatever it might be.
Right. Agree. And the mental health aspect is huge because, like what you said, having the self
Mhm.
worth. Admittedly, I don't know that I initially had the self worth once I got sick. I think being a young dad, that actually motivated me more, was not wanting to leave that void in my daughter's life. So it's
Yeah.
interesting how that can evolve too. That it's like, I mean, I didn't have it for myself, but that eventually evolved into being for myself and not just for
Yeah.
her. So it's like the motivation might change. What pushes you to do it or pulls you to do it might change over time. But I think that's okay too, recognizing that type of thing as well.
Agreed. Agreed. And it's definitely a big motivator. And I know from years working with children that the amount of times I have to pull the parents up and I'm like, what are you doing for your health? And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, I see you every week and you are not
Mm.
okay, and they'll go, oh, I've got to keep going. No one else is. I say, yeah, but if you go down, this is such a big thing, especially as a mum or a dad. If you go down, what happens to the rest of the ship?
Right.
Like, especially if you're the main caregiver and your partner has to go to work, what happens if your partner has to stay home and look after you because you've neglected your health for so long that you can't get out of bed,
Hmm.
and all these sorts of things, and not realizing that, oh, okay. And, it's such a big thing too when you ask people, how are they? And we're so trained to default to good, right? Oh, I'm good. And I'm like, and then when people ask me that, I don't like saying I'm good if I'm not good. I'll be like, oh, I'm okay. I've got this going on in my life, and they don't know what to
No,
do. But at the same time, I feel we need to get better at doing that because then it helps people, as you said, with the mental health aspect, because we're so good at blanketing what's going on in our life and not talking about the difficult things.
no, I agree a ton. And so I was trying to break that habit myself of not just automatically replying, I'm good. Right. And so it's funny you
Mm,
say that because now, most days, even if I am good, I've just changed my response to I'm medium and it stops them in their
media.
tracks. They're like, you're medium. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know. Not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, just living my day out right now. But how are you? Like, stop and think about it for a second. Don't just say good when I can clearly see you're not.
Yeah. I have another friend who's a podcast host, and he asks, how's your mental health today? Because it's differently worded, it makes people stop in their track and actually think about it. Because we get so sucked into the script. It's like, well, we even get stuck into the prescription script, right? So it's very similar. Like we just get used to, well, this is what I do. I have a headache. I'm going to go take here we call it Panadol or paracetamol. We're going to take that to mask the headache rather than going, okay, maybe I need more water. Maybe I'm low on salt. Maybe I'm having, especially as a female, maybe there's some hormone
Right.
shift going on. Maybe my neck's out of alignment. There's so many other things that a headache could mean. And instead we just
I
mask it,
know.
and we don't go deeper into, all right, what's going on the deeper layers here.
Yeah, it's like our health classes should have been teaching us the language of the body. Like if it could talk to us,
Mm,
it wouldn't send us that symptom. So it's like we gotta be more willing to navigate what the symptom can mean and not just going with whatever.
mask
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's huge.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's, I guess that's such a big thing is to be curious, right? Like just be curious, like, huh, why have I suddenly got a sore shoulder and I haven't done anything to it? What is that telling me? Or why when I eat this food now is it causing me to feel really bloated afterwards? Or, why when, I'm around this person, do I feel this way afterwards? It can be even to that
Right.
level and understanding like on the body, mind, and spirit level, like as you were sharing earlier.
Yes. No, agree. And I think that I don't know if you feel it in your city and the people you're talking to around the world, but it really does seem like we're living in the time where that changes. Because
Agreed.
it's I'm just meeting across the board, even since COVID, the amount of conventional medical doctors I knew before and how many have now went back to go for functional medicine or went back to get that because they're
Yeah,
just like something ain't right here. I feel like we're living in that generation where we're going to get to make a significant change the next 20 or 30 years with this conversation.
agreed. And more people are, starting to question and they're starting to see like actually that didn't work or, that didn't go to plan or, you know, why am I still unwell or why can't I get better? There's all these questions that people are starting to ask. And, some doctors, like you said, are going back for functional medicine. Some are curious and also going, yeah, why is this not
Right.
working? And, then you've got the handful. And this is just like with any part of the population who will go, yeah, I know how to do my
Yeah.
job. I'm just going to keep doing it rather than how can I do it better? You
Right.
know?
I do
Yeah,
know because it was like, I don't know. If I help somebody, that's good. Right. But I tend to not think about it much past that. It's more the people that I don't help that sit with me night after night. So to your point with the doctors, I don't know how, whether it's a doctor, physical therapy, chiropractor, if you're helping someone and you see a certain percentage every week that you were unable to give a professional to go see or you could help them directly, it leads me to go, what do I not know? Who have I not met? What am I missing here? Because that's not okay with me that I can't. So it's like you gotta really be curious.
100%. And, the more curious you are, the more that it's not curiosity killed the cat. I feel like that saying was like instilled in us to stop us being
Right?
curious kind of thing. Because for me, the more curious I am, the more magic unfolds. And, I always think approach something like a child, like, what does this mean?
Great.
And, bring back that wonder and that beautiful, like you've got a daughter, you understand. Like they just look at everything new and fresh and sometimes you need that shift in perspective in order to make the biggest changes in your life so you can take back your sovereignty and take back who you're meant to be at a fundamental level.
I agree. Couldn't agree more with that because we're missing it. We're big time missing that. And we could keep going on about how that ripple affects into mental health, but it's like looking around, there's not a lot of people that do that. But the ones that do, they have an authentic joy and well-being around them
Mm,
that you can feel.
100%.
Scary at first, but once you keep going and you learn more, you feel empowered. And like you said, that's where the magic can happen and things can come together.
100%. And as we start to finish our time together, Jason, I asked the guests that come on the show if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be? I'm sorry, it's only one thing.
I would say heal or change. So this would be as a society, or like if I snap my finger, every person would look at it different.
You can interpret it whatever way you want because I trust you'll give the right answer for you.
Okay. I actually think it is around what you just said about being curious, bringing back that childlike nature is if I could snap my fingers and allow people to give themselves permission to do that again and not feel like you have to have all the answers, not feel like if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to get, ostracized or whatever it is that safety is the word I'm going to use to feel like you can go forward and question and have honest conversations. That's what I get to have with my daughter and my son, right? And I feel like as we grow up, that is conditioned out of us that just shut your mouth and stay in line, say yes and keep moving. And so it's like, if we could bring that back, I think the whole world would be flipped over on its head, because there's so many things we don't know the answers to. So many things.
100%.
So it's like, let's get back to those and stop trying to make everything in the medicine or science as an absolute truth, because it's not an absolute truth. We're discovering it.
Yeah. So well said, Jason. So well said. And if people want to contact you or get your book, No Cure, No Problem, where can they find that and you?
The best place would be empoweredprevention.com. That's my website. So you'll find all my social handles, but you can find the book, No Cure, No Problem, on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, online. You can get it anywhere. But then social media wise, at empoweredprevention.com on all the platforms. If you don't find me, it's because I'm not on there. But otherwise, you'll find me under Empowered Prevention.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to put all those details in the show notes for everyone as well. So thank you so much for joining me, Jason, and having this conversation to encourage people to be curious again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great to talk with you.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.